Cappadocia, the land of beautiful horses. Over 60 million years ago, the Earth had not yet taken on the face we know today. The heart of Anatolia was covered by ancient seas and inland waters, where this barren landscape now stands. Waves once rippled, and life flourished beneath the surface. A habitat teeming with thousands of living creatures that would leave no trace, yet shape the foundations of a world to come. Over time, the waters receded, and land emerged raw, untouched, waiting to be sculpted. Erciyes, Hassan, Guluda, three giants roared to life. Dust, lava, and ash buried the land. The world was not ending, it was preparing. Then the rains came. Endless storms battered the land, reshaping what fire had created. Water became the sculptor. Flood waters carved their way through the soft rock, cutting deep into the earth, forming the valleys that define Cappadocia today. But the sculpting was far from over. Wind carved the rock, grain by grain, and the fairy chimneys emerged. Millions of years of fire, water, wind, and Cappadocia finally took the form we see today. But the land was still waiting for its first visitors. And then humanity came, not as conquerors, but as wanderers drawn by the land, exploring its shapes, discovering a place they would call home. But were they truly the first to find this land? No. Ancient eyes were already watching. They set foot on Cappadocia, but with no food, no shelter, and barely the strength to stand. They were not alone. The ancient lords of this land had already taken notice, watching from the heights of the skies and the depths of the earth. Some welcomed them, others slithered into the shadows. And then hope, a pear tree standing alone in the valley, enough to believe that this land could sustain them. The stone was soft. What nature had spent millions of years shaping could be shaped again, this time by human hands. End quote. They had found not just land, but a home waiting to be carved. And so they began. With bare hands and primitive tools, they carved into the rock strike by strike, day after day. What once sheltered only wind and shadow slowly became chambers, passages, and rooms. They were not just surviving anymore, they were building. Fire flickered against stone walls for the first time. Warmth filled the hollow rock. Cappadocia was no longer just a landscape, it had become home. They didn't just carve for shelter, they carved for meaning. Stone became their canvas. The land had fed them with what it offered freely, but hunger pushed them further. The hunt began. That night, fire met flesh. They gathered around the flames, and as the sky softened above them, Cappadocia felt like home more than ever. The Kasilermak, Anatolia's longest river, carved through the heart of Cappadocia. The river didn't just offer fish. Beneath the surface, a deep red clay waited, soft, rich, and ready to be shaped. They gathered it by hand, not yet knowing what it would become. Hands that once carved rock, now shaped clay. And from the red earth of Avanos, the first pots were born. The river had given them more than water. This is how craft was born. Pots to carry water, vessels to store grain. Clay filled every corner of their lives. It was no longer just craft, it was survival. Scattered lives had become a village. A new chapter was unfolding. Peace reigned. Among the wild plants, they found something new, a small, sun-ripened fruit. But this single grape was the beginning of a culture that would span thousands of years. They loved the grape, so they learned to plant it. But the land alone wasn't enough. In the valleys, thousands of pigeons nested in the rock, and their droppings became the secret of the soil. The vines grew stronger, the harvest grew larger. A simple discovery that changed everything. They pressed the grape, crushing it by foot, and from its must, pekmez and wine were born, the signature of this land. The first civilization carved into Cappadocia, the Hattians. In Cappadocia, history turned from symbol to script. With the Assyrian merchants, these lands opened to the world for the first time. Trade routes were born, and Cappadocia became a crossroads of civilizations. Then the Hittite sun rose over Cappadocia. But peace would not last long. Word had spread Cappadocia was a land worth taking, and dark eyes were already watching. From the north, they came, the Cimmerians, no settlers. They rode through Cappadocia with fury, plundering, burning, leaving nothing but dust. And just as suddenly as they came, they vanished. Then the Phrygians rose, and order was restored to the land. They carved an entire world beneath, room after room, passage after passage. An underground city breathed in silence. Everything they needed to survive hidden from the world above. Then the Persians came. They turned underground life into an underground city, deeper, wider, bolder. They pulled their animals beneath the earth with them. Now, everything was stored underground. Rooms, passages, cellars. They carved 8 floors deep into the rock. Below the surface became greater than above. They drew their breath from chimneys above, and their water from even deeper below. Then the Greeks came, and with Alexander, a new era began in Cappadocia. For a brief time, the land found peace, and the skies had cleared. The sun and moon were shining once again. Roman Empire. Rome brought more than power. It brought a new faith. Christianity reached Cappadocia, and the people did what they had always done. They carved, not for shelter, but for worship. On the cold stone walls, they painted frescoes, figures, faces, stories of Scripture. The first sermons echoed through the rock. But Rome did not welcome this new faith. Soldiers marched into the villages, burning, destroying. Christianity was forbidden. And those who refused to abandon their faith did what Cappadocia had taught them. They went underground. Deep beneath the surface, they hid, praying in silence. But the soldiers followed. They descended into the tunnels, searching, chasing, determined to end what had begun. But the Christians knew these passages better than any Roman ever could. Every tunnel, every hidden door, every secret chamber. They sealed the stone behind them and vanished into the dark. Rome searched, but Cappadocia kept its people hidden. And beneath the earth, the faith survived, and they connected the underground cities to one another. An entire world linked beneath the surface. The Seljuks rode from the east, and with them came order. Cappadocia became a crossroads of trade. And for a long while, peace reigned over Cappadocia. Under Ottoman rule, life in Cappadocia flowed in a quiet rhythm. Faith was lived freely beneath the open sky. Under the Republic, Cappadocia stepped into a new era. Freer, renewed, and filled with hope. Caves, churches, carvings in stone. Cappadocia never hid its history. Everyone looked up, but the real story was waiting beneath their feet. When Cappadocia revealed its secrets, the world couldn't look away. And now, from every corner of the earth, millions come to trace a story written in stone. And when the sun rises over Cappadocia, no words are needed.